We work hard as physicians to take care of the health and well-being of our patients. But when it comes to our money, do we have the same condition of care? Probably not. Let's change that together. Welcome to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, where we'll fight and advocate for your financial literacy. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into the show. This week's episode is sponsored by CityVest. CityVest has quickly become the most popular and best way for doctors to invest in top-performing real estate private equity funds that are usually reserved for institutional investors. This unique access to investing in these institutional funds is available for the first time ever through CityVest's easy and secure online investment platform. CityVest does the hard work of conducting due diligence and vetting the investments. They even get a third-party due diligence report that is posted on their website. As a result of aggregating a several $million investment amount into their access funds, CityVest gains access to investing in the institutional investment and is able to negotiate better investment terms such as a 12% preferred return. You can check them out at cityvest.com or go to the link in the show notes below. Welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, we talk about 4 types of freedom: financial, time, location, emotional freedom. And in that light, our audience consists of physicians, entrepreneurs, investors, business owners, and we highlight individuals doing things on the cutting edge, outside of the box, showing you what is possible to live your best life. So in that light, we have Paul Halme, and he's the creator of the simple money system and passive income machine. I'm going to let him talk all about himself and his journey, but it's going to be a great conversation about entrepreneurship, becoming a millionaire, passive income mindset. So Paul, welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's exciting.
Yeah, I know we had talked on Podmatch, and like I said, I think your expertise and your experience would really benefit the audience. So tell us more about yourself, your business, your company, and how you got started.
Yeah, my story is kind of crazy. I grew up in a really small town in South Dakota. And then when I graduated college, my best friend this is back in 1997. He's like, hey, I'm going to move to Dallas and train to fight in the UFC. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I don't want to do that, but I want to get out of South Dakota and move down to Texas. Met my wife 2 years later. We've been together for 25 years. So I guess I'm a permanent resident of Texas now. And then one thing led to another. I ended up getting a job as a stockbroker in 2001. We were hiring everybody back then. It was like the markets were on fire. If anybody remembers the .com bubble, I was a part of that. I got to watch that thing explode. Then, of course, did that for 6 years, then got the entrepreneurial bug, got hooked on that, opened up a few businesses, did that, and then started consulting, helping people grow their business. And then one of the cool side effects of growing your business the right way is you start having more money you don't know what to do with. And then so I was like, hey, I'm going full circle now. I'm going to go back to being a stockbroker to help people set up, just basic automations to get them on the right track to financial freedom.
Yeah. Well, it's a very inspiring journey, and it sounds like you're an entrepreneur at heart. And so we'll go down. We'll start talking about basic the fast. So we can talk about on how any entrepreneur can become a millionaire. So tell us, you did it through stocks and through businesses, and share us your experience and your wisdom from that.
Yeah, it's the funniest thing because I grew up like a lot of people where my family didn't talk about money. They were like, money's evil. We can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees, all the limiting beliefs we have. And then I was 26 and I got a job as a stockbroker and I started talking to people on the phone. They'd call up and have millions of dollars. And I'm like, oh, this person must be like a genius or whatever. Cause I'd never met anybody that had that kind of money. And I started talking to them. There's regular people that put money away every week for 40 years. And they're like, yeah, one day I had $2 million. And I'm like, okay, this is not that hard. And then when you go through it and you go through all the financial models, anybody listening to this has probably been to like a Fidelity, a Schwab, or an Ameritrade. And they're like, hey, if you put, and everybody's seen the chart, you put $400 away at 9.5% interest for 40 years in the S&P 500, you're going to have $1 million. I mean, it's just math and automation and just leaving the money in the market. And a lot of people are like, oh, that takes too long. I don't want to wait 40 years. And then you start talking to people. It's like, well, then you have to accelerate, put more money away or create a business that makes you profits, then set up different retirement accounts, trying to find ways to accelerate it. But the cool thing I tell anybody is like, people always say, oh, that's going to take too long. I'm like, well, it's better than being 65 with nothing. So it's like, so I tell people, if you're 25, you're getting out of school or whatever, and start putting money away, $400 or $500 a month. And then when you get into your 30s and 40s and 50s, when you're really making money, then just start accelerating it and finding different tax vehicles. So then when that day comes, when you're like, you know what, I'm good, then you can just step away and just enjoy your life instead of being, 60, 70 years old, try to live off Social Security and whatever you have left from hopefully selling your business, which who knows after the last couple of years what businesses are worth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about, a disciplined saving plan, saving, 10, 20, plus percent of your income, try to legally pay as little in taxes as possible and just, keep your money in the market, dollar cost averaging. So,
Yeah. And that's the hardest part because we saw it back, in 2020 when the pandemic started, the markets crashed. What everybody started doing, they all started selling. And it's like, I had family members call me. I'm like, just whatever you do, don't sell. It's like, yes, things are bad. And they're like, well, what if the world ends? I'm like, well, then it doesn't matter what you sold because your money's worthless. But I said, what's going to happen when the market tanks? You think Amazon's going out of business? You think Moderna's going out of business? None of these companies are going out of business. And so people that kept their money in March of 2020 made a ton of money. And then you see like this year, the market tanked in January through the summer. And everybody's like, oh, the sky's falling. Everybody started selling. And what happened this summer? Crazy summer rally. It's up huge this summer. So it's like, you just never know. It's so hard to time the market. I just tell people, it's like, just keep putting money in the market all the time and don't worry about it.
Doc to Doc is a personal lending solution designed by doctors for doctors. We understand that doctors' financial situations change faster than an insulin drip in ketoacidosis. And we also understand that doctors are the most reliable borrowers in the world. Through our proprietary algorithm, we're able to provide personal loans at great rates with amazing flexibility because we take into account your schooling, your specialty, and where you are in the medical journey. Doctors come to us after they've matched into residency, and we loan for all sorts of personal reasons, from credit card debt consolidation to family expenses and medical bills. We speak with everyone who applies for a loan and offer fixed interest rates and flexible term options without prepayment penalties. If you're a physician looking for a personal loan, fill out our application form now. It only takes 3 minutes, and we'll get back to you with a decision within 24 hours. How can someone start building their own passive income machine?
Yeah, so that's cool. I do things in phases. I tell people, phase one is just get started, start doing things like that. Phase two is you're accumulating money, and this is the fun part. At phase two, you're maxing out any retirement accounts you can get. You have your emergency account funded. You have a college savings account for your kids. You have health savings accounts. You have brokerage accounts. Then it's like when you start getting money there, then the third phase of financial life, I call it, is you start seeing these deals that all started popping up in the last couple of years. And one thing I've done in my phase, because I'm not considering myself like starting the third phase, is you can find these deals where it's like you can invest into private equity, into other businesses, other companies. And the coolest part about it is you don't get to do anything. Like you have no say, but you have no responsibility either. So to me, it's like, it's been amazing. It's a super slow process, but it's out there. You see tons and tons of deals out there and tons of deal flow picking up. And then now there's all these different real estate investments you can do. And it's just a really exciting time to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your enthusiasm. And so.
I'm just excited. It's like love them or hate them. I blame a lot of it on Robinhood, because when Robinhood came out, all the young kids were buying GameStop and AMC and all this crazy stuff people my age would never do. But Robinhood started making so much money that Fidelity, Ameritrade, Schwab, they all had to cut their fees. They all had to make their programs better, make their apps better. So now you're seeing lots of different things where it's so easy to invest. Because back when I was a broker, people would call up and be like, they couldn't afford a share of, certain stocks. Now, because of Robinhood, you have fractional shares. And if people don't know what that is, that's like, say when Amazon was at 4,000, you're like, man, if I buy 100 shares, it's going to cost me it's going to cost me $40,000. I don't want to do that. But now you can literally say, you know what? I want to buy $25 Amazon every Wednesday. And you can do it. It's so cool because fractional shares are just a game changer.
Yeah. It's technology really leveled the playing field.
Oh, it's so awesome.
Made things more efficient, more cheaper, really cut out middlemen and really change the game. So
it's huge.
So let's talk about we talked about it sounds like you have a very powerful money mindset. How did you come about that, and how did you build it, and what sort of resources did you have?
I think it goes back to childhood. Like I felt ripped off because like my family was always like, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. Rich people suck. Might just grow on trees. So I had the worst money mindset in the beginning. I had this whole reputation. People that know me from college, they consider me like the cheapest person. I'm like, man, I'm not that person. So like when I go pay for dinner, people freak out. I'm like, I'm not that person anymore because I grew up just, we didn't have any money and money sucked. And then, like I said, I started working as a broker and I started seeing what real money was. And then the crazy thing is through jujitsu, I started to meet a lot of people. I started meeting doctors, lawyers, federal agents, police officers, bartenders, all the different people. And then we became good friends. I hear they talk to their kids about money. And I'm like, hey, this isn't fair. It's like you're talking to your 15-year-old about your business and investments. Like my parents didn't have investments. So I was like, I always said, you know what? I'm going to work on my mindset so I can be a better dad. And, with my kids, because I catch myself all the time. Like my kids would be like, oh, I want this. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I can't say that. So then the big thing I switch it to is how can we afford it? Because there's always ways if they want something bad enough, they can find a way. But given these negative mindset makes it so hard. And it's like the media makes it horrible too. It's like if anybody makes money, like, oh, the billionaires are the worst people on earth. I'm like, man, they're funding a lot of really cool things. Yeah. So for me, it's just been a nonstop process of just like, podcasts, self-development books, audiobooks, just trying to like biographies of successful people. Is like, what do they do differently? And a lot of them just think different. Like they don't have the limiting beliefs that a lot of us are born with.
Yeah. You mentioned some books. What are some books that you could recommend to people that are in the audience that are really, hyped up about what you're talking about?
Yeah, one is Think and Grow Rich. This is a crazy good book. I don't know if you've read that one. It's a really good book. I really enjoy that one. That one's phenomenal. A new one that's really good is Ed Milet's The Power of One More. Just came out. It's phenomenal. Another one I love is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It's like so simple, but just game changing, because it teaches you how little things, and one more than is Atomic Habits, which is just about like small habits. And if you do them consistently, they just compound and make your life easier. It's like going back to college, or for you guys going to medical school. It's like, you got a test coming up, you got to cram. And it's like, but if you would have done like just a little bit every day, you wouldn't have. I remember in college, it was like, oh God, I got this test tomorrow, I better start studying. And it's like, if I just would have done a little bit every day, it wouldn't have been so bad. So that's I tell people with their finances and their businesses is just do a little bit, make small, positive, incremental improvements every day. And then it gets easier.
Yeah. I love that. It's, the other thing is, so sounds like, your mindset really helped you, and you surrounded yourself with a really powerful environment and ecosystem to help you, be good with money, invest your money, create passive streams, get your freedom. The other thing is, so we'll get into some of the technicals, but what do you think is why do you think developing wealth is too slow and boring for most people?
It's so funny. If I show people, like when I give them that example, like literally anybody, do $400 or $500 a month, 9.5% a year, 40 years, people are like, oh, it's so boring. And if you look at a chart, like the first 10 years, it's like, it goes, like the, like 10, it's a slow. It's like Charlie Munger, he says the first 100,000 is the hardest thing, because it takes so long, but then people don't realize a lot of people quit before then, like, oh, saving's too hard, investing's too hard. But I forget what the number is. It's like 6 or 7, maybe 10 years to get your first 100,000. But then the next 100,000 is like 5 years, and the next 100,000 is 2 years. And then so the sooner you do it, the faster it compounds. But the average person, they're like, oh, I don't want to wait 40 years. I'm like, well, you're not going anywhere. You might as well do it now anyways.
Yeah.
It's hard too, because we get caught up in the sexy stuff. Like everybody's like, oh, I want to be a trader, or I want to be a day trader, or I want to trade options. And I tell people that stuff all has its place and everything, but you can't make that that'd be like, when Michael Jordan, was playing basketball, it's like he didn't warm up doing, 360 dunks. He warmed up doing chest passes and the most fundamental things. It's like, if you have all your fundamentals dialed in and your everything's, have a small account that's fun and you just, do crazy weird stuff with, and, your Bitcoins and your Ethereums and different stuff like that, and have fun with it. But at the end of the day, you have to have your baseline, solid, fundamental approach that covers you. So I was joking off with my wife, because we started doing, we started buying into other businesses, and she was like, well, what if something goes wrong? I'm like, well, I said, we're not going to starve. It's like, it's extra money that we've built up over the years. We still have our fundamental plan. This is the like, hey, if this works out, this is a moonshot. And then we'll get checks, every month, every quarter for the next however long, so it's having the fundamentals that allow you to do the fun stuff.
Yeah.
But nobody likes the fundamentals.
Yeah, it's there's a popular quote, you get rewarded in public for what you practice in private. So
Oh yeah.
uh what do you think is the difference between, because you mentioned day trading, what's the difference, either psychologically or technically between trading and investing?
And that's a great question. That's a super, super strange area. So investing is like thinking about long-term. Warren Buffett, I tell people, like, you want to be an investor, think Warren Buffett mentality. Warren's like, well, I buy a stock for the next 10 or 20 years. He doesn't buy it for like 6 months to a year. He's like, he's investing, he's putting money away. It's like, I think he has it put into his trust or whatever when he dies, that his wife's money all goes in the S&P 500 and then like a little bit in bonds. Like he's like, I want nothing complicated. It's too hard to beat the S&P 500. Day trading is a super tough animal. Everybody's tried it. I've tried it. It's like, tell you, every time I've tried, I lose. It's like, you get a rush from it though, because when you win, you're like, oh my God, I'm the greatest thing ever. And then risk management, then you end up losing twice as much as you made. So
Yeah.
day trading is a super hard thing. I have friends that do it and they're good at it, but they literally have like 2 monitors. They're staring at it. They're drinking like 4 Red Bulls. I'm like, I don't know if this is healthy, guys, because they're super stressed out because they're watching the candles tick. And I'm like, but I've seen people that are really good at it. You have to have insane focus and insane risk tolerance, where most of us don't have risk tolerance. That's where I end up falling apart, is when you investing, you're like, oh, the stock goes down a little bit. Oh, I'm not worried about it. It's for the long term. But when you're day trading, if a stock goes down and you're like, oh, maybe it's going to come back, then you get crushed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's tough.
um, the other thing is, what do you see as, why are most people unhappy no matter how much money they have?
Man, a lot of times I talk to a lot of people, especially because I still have a jujitsu gym, which was my first entrepreneur, or I guess my first successful entrepreneurship run. Like, been doing that for 20 years, but I
Uh,
still have one location I keep because it's like my baby. It's my place to kind of go and let loose. I see a lot of people that have a lot of money, but they don't take care of themselves. And then they come in and they're like, literally they're falling apart. And I'm like, and they're so unhappy. And it's like, man, you got to take care of yourself. And the hard part is, and we start to see it a lot, unfortunately, with like guys my age, like in their late 40s, early 50s, half of my friends are getting divorced now because, they spent the last 25 years trying to make other people happy and raise their kids, and their kids are gone. And they're like, okay, I don't like my life anymore. This is not what I want. So I tell people, it's like, find a hobby, find something that's healthy. Like, I can tell by looking at you, you're in good shape and you work out and take care of yourself. But you see a lot of people with money that are, one foot in the grave. And it's like, man, you're working so hard and you're not going to get to spend any of it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's so important, like,
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, especially your guys' profession, you probably see it all the time, is like, people don't want to take care of themselves until it's something really bad. And you're like, yeah, this is, if you accumulated this health problem for 30 years, you want me to fix it overnight.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, it's like finances are only one pillar, but it's a very important pillar. But there's all these other pillars. There's your health and your relationships and your family and emotional health as well. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, it's quite interesting because you've been able to really develop really solid relationships. What's your formula for giving your kids an unfair advantage in life and getting your spouse on the same page financially?
Yeah, that one's the big battle, because my friends will be like, yeah, I knock on wood. I don't know how I've been this lucky. If I'm married for, since I met my wife 25 years ago, been married for 23. So, but I think one thing we started doing by accident that I'd gotten advice from somebody else is we just talk about money. Like, I don't hide any, like, a lot of my friends are like, oh, you talk to your wife about money? I'm like, yeah, it's kind of important. She should kind of know what's going on, and she helps me because I'll want to do some stupid sometimes. Like during the pandemic, I was like, well, no, we should open a Subway or some kind of a franchise thing. And she goes, yeah, that's great. Then what happens if somebody calls in sick and you gotta go make sandwiches? And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. Never mind, forget it. No, I'm out. But so she's a great checks and balance. And then, we communicate about money, and she comes from a background of like me, but even lower than me, where her parents didn't have any money. They didn't have anything. So it's like, I joke around, like at our house, people come over and visit, and CNBC's on, from market open to market close. And everybody knows my sister-in-law, you don't turn the channel. It's just a staple at our house, is like CNBC. So my wife over the years has become a really good investor, because she just invests in what she uses, and, sticks to things she holds forever. It drives me nuts. Like, she'll buy something, hold it for 3 or 4 years, and then she just crushes me. But yeah, the biggest thing you do is when your kids are young is I call it breaking the financial cycle. depending on the level people listen to this, a lot of times if you didn't grow up around money, nobody talked about money. But then when you get around wealthy families, they talk about money. So with my kids, since they were little, we always talked about money. It's like, what do you think about this? What could you do here? What do you think about Apple stock? You think Amazon's going to be good for the long term. You think the iPhone's going away and Droid's going to beat it. My kids would be like, no, iPhone's the best forever. I'm like, all right, we should buy some more Apple then, and just teaching them to think differently about stuff. I forget it was, somebody had a really good quote. Like, if you didn't even invest in, if you just bought enough Apple stock for the same price as an iPhone every year for the last 10 years, you'd have like a couple $100,000. It's something ridiculous. It's like, but everybody wants like, no, man, I got the new iPhone, the new iMac, the iPad, the MacBook Air. And I'm like, how much Apple stock do you have? And they're like, none. I'm like, okay, you could be making like, guarantee, obviously nothing guarantees it, but if you're using it and buying it. So I want my kids just to think differently. Like, we always talk about money. We always talk about opportunity, different things like that. And of course, my son's younger, so he wants to talk about crypto. Like, he thinks stocks are for old people and crypto's the future. And I'm like, well, yeah, maybe, but I just like the fact that he's open-minded and we'll talk about money, because that's the one thing I saw when I got around people with money is how they talk to their kids.
Just keep it open, keep it honest. Just talk about it, and just that's how you get kids exposed and really interested in it.
The sooner the better. It's like my nephew, he lived with us for a little bit and he'd ask me all kinds of questions and stuff. And then he was finishing up school, and then he finished up school, and now he got a job as a stockbroker. So I'm like, I'll take credit for that, because he was going to school for accounting. And I was like, dude, I got him in learning about the markets and everything. And then he's like, hey, I'm going to be a stockbroker now. I'm like, cool. Go reach out to these companies. And then, he ended up getting a job and passed his 7 and 63. So I was like, that was cool. He listened.
Nice. Yeah. I really enjoyed this conversation, and your enthusiasm is very infectious, and, I really love it.
Thank you.
And I hope I'm sure the audience really resonated with your principles and your ideals. So,
I get excited when we start talking about this kind of stuff. I get all fired up.
Yeah, same here. How can people visit your website, contact you, work with you?
Yep. Yeah, my website's good. I update my blogs and stuff like that on there, and the podcast. It's www.paulhalme.com. And then on social media, my favorite's Instagram, .com/PAUL_HALME. I love Instagram, although now there's a bunch of fake accounts out there. So I only have one real account. So
well, and for the audience out there, Paul's resources will be in the links in the show notes. And I really enjoyed this conversation. It was,
it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
And I'm sure the audience really got a lot of key takeaways, and it's great.
I hope so.
We look forward to connecting with you and hearing about your future success.
Thank you.
I'm excited that you made it for another episode. You are truly the best. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that my passion is to bring you the education you need to find your path to financial freedom. Please come back week after week for new content, new resources, and great guests. Until then, if you haven't already, please be sure to check out the website, www.drchrislewmdphd.com, for more support. I'll see you next week.